on this episode of the Ministry of Motion Pictures podcast.
And so I'm sitting there in their office, saying, you guys do know this is like an unapologetic Christian movie, right? Like, this isn't faithy. This isn't Little House on the Prairie. This is, hey guys, Jesus is good. And he is the way, the truth, and the life. And no one comes to the Father except him. This is a gospel movie. You do understand that, right? The famous quote back was, Brad, we sell Saw and we sell Barney.
That was from a conversation that writer-director Brad Silverman had when he was pitching a film at Lionsgate. Brad is my guest on this episode, and he shares with us how he got his start in filmmaking and ended up making Christian films, his two best-known titles being No Greater Love and Grace Unplugged. There are two things that I've come to admire in Brad as a filmmaker. First, he is completely committed to a sound biblical theology, no matter what the cost. And second, through the ups and downs of trying to make his way as a filmmaker, Brad has a complete trust in the sovereign hand of God working in his life. This is episode 14.
So you've made 2 films? You've written and directed 2 films.
Okay, technically, by letter of the law, I've written and directed 4 feature films.
Okay.
I say letter of the law because the first one is kind of this mockumentary that it's one of those, me and my, maybe my family would enjoy, and even that's a stretch. But no, it's just like this tiny little mockumentary we did. Technically, it is per IMDb. It's my first feature directing thing. It's called SP, like the letters SP and then Live.
Oh, SP Live.
There you go.
Okay, got it.
That's right. You know what? It doesn't get enough love. I'm going to plug it every time I talk now.
You should. It could be a cult classic. You never know.
You know what? I keep waiting. So the short answer to your question is technically 4 features. No Greater Love. Grace Unplugged. And Selfie Dad.
Selfie Dad. Okay, that's not out yet.
Oh, yeah, it's not out yet. Sorry.
How did you get into filmmaking?
Good question. It's one of those things that I think I was always doing it, even at a hobby level, going back to elementary, junior high. I just always found my way to the drama department kind of thing. I always enjoyed the putting shows together factor. In high school, it'd be little skits for the talent show, the kind of stuff. So it's really been in my blood for really as long as I can remember.
Huh.
I think in college is when I started to formalize it a little bit. I had a kind of a sort of, in a sense, a comedy troupe in a way, just guys that I lived with in the dorm rooms and stuff, and we just kind of, just put shows together. And I started to take it a little bit more serious, and to the point where I literally left school to pursue that full time, and just, like anything, just through the ups and downs, highs and lows, I was kind of just pursuing it for the most part ever since.
That got you into comedy.
Yeah.
And how did you come about SP Live?
Goodness, what an awesome question. I haven't thought about that project. Robert Rodriguez.
Yes.
Okay, he had done the movie El Mariachi for
$6,000.
Okay, I had read his book. I think it was called Rebel Without a Crew.
Yes, that's it.
And I remember reading the book, how he sold his blood platelets to raise money, to make the movie. I remember reading the book, going, okay, the movie's okay, but this book is fantastic. I found the book so much more interesting. I approached my friends and say, guys, let's make a movie about, it's kind of an old thing now, but at the time when you're young and stupid, it's like, hey, I got a great original idea, which has probably been done 1,000 times. We're going to make a movie about the process of us trying to make the movie, and the actual process of us making the movie will be the movie.
Oh.
So we're not actually making a movie. And so while we're making the movie, I'm like, okay, we need to have, stunts. So let's go talk to a stuntman, and, we'll literally go interview a stuntman and see if we can't, and then we get into a fight. Just it's stupid stuff that, we were like, we wanted to have a car chase, but none of us had a car. So, we went to a dealership, and we asked if we could test drive cars, and it turns out that the guy said, well, you can't test drive it. So the dealer actually drove the car around the lot, and we cut it together as if it was this big car chase. So it was just shenanigans like that. But it was just us. We came about it trying to say, what could we do for $1,000? We have a camera and $1,000. I don't know that we spent $200 on the thing, but we did it. It made it into a couple festivals, and it actually, believe it or not, got a distribution offer. So we were like, you got to be kidding me. So
Really?
That's that. So yeah, but that was strictly comedy. It wasn't a faith project. I mean, it was clean. Yeah, so it still exists.
And you got a distribution deal out of it. So how did you go from that to No Greater Love?
So meanwhile, during this whole era in those mid-2000s, I was really the Lord was really changing me a lot. And, you know, we were studying for full-time ministry. I think it was after SB Live that we actually thought, okay, let's just leave the industry completely. And so my wife and I actually, through a sequence of events, I almost became a youth pastor in Indiana.
Wow.
And so that was really the passion of our lives, and still is, of course, but that was going to be the vocation. And so this is like 2007 now. And when that fell through, I just kind of felt like, okay, I really didn't sense it after that. I didn't sense being called into ministry, but I was certainly willing if I felt that where the Lord was leading. So when I came back to LA somewhere in 2007, went back to my buddy who was my producing partner, Russ Rice.
Right.
And I remember he just said, you know, hey, what do you want to do? And I just said, man, I feel like we have some unfinished business in film. And so together, he and I, we did what was a pilot to a kids show called It Really Happened, like a kids educational show. The fall of 2008, we had finished the pilot to the kids show. We had an agent that was shopping it around, and the agent was super confident. He loved it. He thought, okay, no-brainer. This is an easy sell. I know exactly who to sell it to. I'm going to sell the pilot, and you guys, you know, get more episodes ready. So we brought in this guy, Matt Green, who helped me write a bunch of episodes. We had like 12 more episodes of the show written, but now it's like around, you know, early November or something. And our agent was like, guys, good news, bad news. The good news is I got a lot of interest in the show. The bad news is, you know, we're pushing the holidays. No one's going to talk to us till after the new year. We're not going to. So sorry, just sit tight. So at that point, Russ and I, we started talking. He's like, well, gosh, we've got time, and through a sequence of events, we were able to get about $150,000 to make a movie. And so Russ said, well, let's just make a feature film while we're waiting. That's as thoughtful as we were. You know, we're just like, let's make a movie. And so at that time, we're like, well, what kind of movie can we make for $150,000? At that time, the movie Facing the Giants had been out. And that was this is before Fireproof. But I remember thinking, I don't know who thought of it, but we said, let's make a Christian film. And if anything, our entire logic was, well, if nothing else, the bar's pretty low. So if our film's junky, at least it'll kind of fit in the crowd, I guess. So, you know, if nobody likes it and they say it's cheesy and bad, it's like, okay, well, it's a typical Christian film then. We'll be fine. So that was our thinking. And so it was in that same holiday time, Todd, that a guy, Brandon, who's Russ's son, had come up. I think he wrote a couple paragraph synopsis, which I found to be a very interesting high concept for a feature film. And keep in mind, unlike the Kendricks, who shoot their films like in Georgia with volunteer crew, and they're in rural Georgia, and everybody's excited, I'm in Los Angeles. And it's like, in L.A., you don't make, you know, nobody's excited to make movies. It's like, it's harder. You know, it's like there's, you know, everything you want to shoot. You need like 19 permits and 7 fire marshals,
right.
And you know, it's very expensive and difficult, which is why many projects go away from Los Angeles and California. But anyway, we're thinking, well, we're here, so we don't have the money to travel, so we're going to shoot. So the whole thinking, Todd, was okay. If we're going to make a story, it's going to have to be a really simple shoot.
Yep.
A high concept film. But literally, it's going to have to be people sitting and talking a lot, you know, just in order to pull it off. Like in a room, 2 cameras, people talk, go. And so that became No Greater Love. So I wrote No Greater Love based on Brandon's story idea. And then brought in a couple buddies, James and Beth Killian. You'll see them in the credits, and then they helped me develop the story. And so it was just kind of, we didn't know what we were doing. We just kind of made that film, and that's how we got into No Greater Love. And then the irony of it is, that was just kind of the let's just do a quick little project while we're waiting for the kids pilot to sell. And as God would have it, the kids pilot never sold, but No Greater Love sold to Lionsgate. So that's kind of put us in a different trajectory.
Okay. So how did you sell it to Lionsgate?
So we finished a cut of the movie, and again, Brandon Rice is the editor of that film, of No Greater Love, and we filmed it, and we made our own trailer. And then I literally, at that point, I think it was Facing the Giants, I can't remember, I literally started looking at the credits for Christian films. And I found a company called Carmel Entertainment. And these two guys, Larry Frenzel and Chris Bueno, and it turns out they were in Orange County. And long story short is I reached out to them and said, hey, we've got a film. Can I send you a trailer for it? And they were associated with Facing the Giants.
Oh, okay.
And it turns out they were the ones, I didn't know this at the time, but they were the ones that got the Kendricks. I don't say got, it's too strong, but they were heavily involved in getting the Kendricks the deal that they have with Sony. And so we sent the trailer to Larry and Chris, and they really liked the trailer for No Greater Love, and they said, hey, how can we see the movie? So we drove a rough cut down, and the rest was history. They looked at the rough cut of the film. They liked it. They gave us some notes on it. We tweaked it a little bit, but for the most part, it was there. And then they started shopping it around, and they just started taking it around, and it ended up finding a home at Lionsgate. It was strictly DVD. So no theatrical. And it did fine. It did actually pretty well for what it was. It was very successful for a direct-to-DVD title. Obviously this is 2010 when it was released, so it was pre-streaming. So the DVD life, especially for Christian titles, was very, very strong.
Right.
So we had some pretty good, we had a really good, combined with our personal promotions that we did, that Russ kind of got behind as a producer of our one aspect of our marketing, and then Lionsgate did the other aspects. And so we actually traveled quite a bit and did a ton of interviews on it. And I don't know, was it two? Yeah, just interviews that I didn't expect that we would get. But keep in mind, at that time, and even in 2010, it was still a little bit more of a novelty to do Christian films than it is today. So we were getting on a lot of, Christian radio, a lot of Christian talk shows and things of that nature. So it was selling pretty well for Lionsgate. So they were very happy with it, and it kind of opened up a door for really the next two films in a sense.
So how'd those come about?
So, I guess my version of it, and maybe mine's a little bit more romantic and exciting than maybe Lionsgate's would be, but after No Greater Love, I started writing another script, and I don't know how far. I probably wrote I don't remember if I'd finished the first draft or not, but I was well into it, and I realized I got word that a movie, Courageous, was coming out, which was another Kendricks movie.
Yeah.
And it had a very strong father's theme. And this movie that I was writing had a very strong dad theme. And so I thought, I don't really want to be in competition with the Kendricks right now. So I ended up shelving that project. And again, through the same guy, Brandon Rice, who had another idea about a girl singer. And she was a Christian singer. It was kind of, but it was the germ of an idea, but which would become Grace Unplugged. And so same idea, just from that, I just started writing it, and through at this point, this is just kind of this is one of those crazy stories, Todd, that maybe it's interesting to share. So I'm writing Grace, the script. I'm writing the early drafts of Grace Unplugged, and a gentleman named Chris Zarpis. Okay, Chris Zarpis. If you IMDb him, he's a film legend, a producing legend. Okay, he was, among other things, he ran the company called Scott Free, which was Ridley and Tony Scott.
Really?
Yeah. So this is during the Gladiator years and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He's a big-time producer, okay? Big-time producer executive. He was a big shot with Disney. He ran Scott Free and so on. So this is Chris Zarpis and his business partner, Bob Norton, okay? Chris has this incredible change of life through God, and God just completely changed his life. Chris leaves Hollywood, goes to Virginia, and sells real estate in Virginia. This is maybe 2011 or 12 by now, okay?
From Hollywood to real estate.
Hollywood to real estate. Edit any of this out if this isn't interesting. But this is how this is. There's a punchline to this. But so Chris, one of his good buddies is a guy named Mark Berg. Okay, Mark Berg is an incredibly successful producer, most known for the Saw franchise.
Yeah.
Okay? And, Saw at the time was like the biggest selling horror franchise ever.
Yeah.
And that was released through Lionsgate. So as the story was relayed to me, Chris calls his buddy Mark. Chris is the one in Virginia selling real estate. Calls his old buddy Mark. He goes, Mark, I've been thinking, I think I want to finance Christian movies. I want to get into that world. I want to start financing Christian movies. What do you know about Christian movies? This is Mark coming off, Saw 7 or something. I'm guessing the conversation was something like, Chris, what do you think I know about Christian movies? What would I know about Christian movies? And so Chris says, hey, check with Lionsgate, or whatever. Mark says, hey, I'll check with Lionsgate. So Mark talks to Lionsgate and says, hey, do you guys know anything about Christian movies? And they go, it's funny you mention it. We have this little direct-to-DVD title called No Greater Love. And it's selling well, and who made it? Well, this guy, Russ Rice and Brad Silverman, I don't know, call them. So that's how we got a hold of Chris Zarpis, okay? So Chris reads the first draft of the script. He loves the concept. He's a genius script editor, so he's helping me with the script, which would become Grace Unplugged. All that to say, he flies out to L.A. When he's in L.A., he stays with Mark Berg. And he brings us, he goes, hey, Mark, do me a favor, read this script. Tell me what you think. So Mark reads Grace Unplugged, and he goes, it's kind of preachy. But Mark brings it to his new wife. I think they were newlyweds at the time, and just a sweetheart, and I give her all the credit in the world for us even making it. She reads Grace Unplugged. She goes, Mark, you got to make this movie. So next thing we know, Mark Berg, who's the
Saw producer.
Yeah. You look on the poster of Grace Unplugged, you'll see Mark Berg Productions. And so Mark, I meet with Mark, and we end up talking, and just hit it off. I love the dude. To this day, I just love the guy. And we spent about 4 hours that first day going through the script, and I'm expecting him to say, cut this out, cut that. He was just super respectful, and I don't know. It was just a great experience with Mark. And so basically the guy who, is behind the Saw franchise was the one who financed Grace Unplugged. It was a big part of the financing of Grace Unplugged.
Wow.
And so the punchline is, how to make it in Hollywood. How do you imitate that? You know what I mean? Like, how do I do a seminar, Todd, and say, well, guys, here's 4 easy steps on getting a studio film made. Just have a friend who you don't know who leaves Hollywood to sell real estate in Virginia.
Yeah.
It's just, and it is. I just look back obviously and say the Lord just orchestrated that.
That's incredible.
So I just don't know how to. I couldn't copy it if I tried. I couldn't do it again if I wanted.
No, for sure.
So that's how. And the beautiful thing, man. Here's what's crazy. For that season, I had done the first script, and Lionsgate was behind it. They were excited about it. And then when I switched it to Grace, they were like, okay, fine. Like, they were like, I was in a position where almost like whatever I would have presented. I mean, obviously that's too much of an exaggeration, but they were eager to read what I was writing at that time. So I was very honored by that.
Now, you told me a story about sitting in an office with somebody from Lionsgate, and you were warning them that this was heavily theological.
This is Lionsgate pre-Hunger Games, when they acquired, or I don't know if they acquired or partnered with Summit they distributed the last couple Twilight movies. My point is Lionsgate is bigger now than they were even in 2011 and 12.
Huh.
Or no, this is 2009, before No Greater Love. So, their biggest hit ever was like a documentary. Like they were still kind of a mid-major at the time. And so I think of them as horror films and stuff. And so I'm sitting there in their office, saying, you guys do know this is like an unapologetic Christian movie, right? Like, this isn't faithy. This isn't Little House on the Prairie. This is, hey guys, Jesus is good. And he is the way, the truth, and the life. And no one comes to the Father except. This is a gospel movie. You do understand that, right? And I don't know if this is what you're talking about. Then the famous quote back was, Brad, we sell Saw and we sell Barney. And this is Ann who said, the Ann producer who said that. And the beautiful thing is, I don't think she ever qualified what she meant by that. She just said, we sell Saw and we sell Barney. And I just sat there staring at her going like, okay, got it. And all I'm thinking is, okay, Saw makes money, Barney makes money. If Christian films make money, count us in.
Okay, so Grace Unplugged. Tell me about that show.
So Grace, like any film, man, anyone who's done one film or 10 films, or look, I've been involved with a lot. I've directed for, but I've been involved obviously with many films. Every film's its own beast, its own adventure, and Grace is no different. For the most part, just incredible stories, and whatever hiccups there were along the way. Like any film, you forget those, you just remember. I always liken filmmaking to giving birth.
Yeah.
Like it's as a guy, I tell my wife, like, my wife's giving birth to 4. Like I that's the closest thing I'll know to giving birth. And I describe it this way, where it's like it's such a painful process to make a movie. It's just horrible. And you finally finish it, and you're like, okay, I am never ever doing that again, ever. And then you go to the premiere and you watch it, and everyone's dressed nice and they smell good, and 4 months later you're like, let's do it again. And I always liken it to like the painful childbirthing process.
Yeah.
And then a couple months later you see the little baby start to coo and smile, and you're like, oh, come on, let's have another one.
Yeah.
And I remember just saying to my wife, are you kidding me? Did you see yourself 4 months ago? No, we're not having another baby. So in that vein, Todd, I guess with Grace, Grace was a joy. I mean, I just of many memories. If anyone listening has seen that movie, it's really the lead. Her name is AJ Mishaka. She's the title character of Grace.
Yeah.
And I remember going in thinking, it's going to be and to this day, I would still say that'll be the hardest role I will ever cast, because I had like 7 criteria that I was looking for that role. And keep in mind, among other things, and I didn't think I was going to get them all. And we literally were about to launch this nationwide search for the actress.
Huh.
And we had this full website set up, and we'd already done like a soft opening, and so people were already starting to submit their self-tape auditions and stuff. We're doing like this soft opening before we do this major push, right?
Yeah.
This like media push, nationwide search. That was going to be part of the marketing and everything, right? The whole, we're the nationwide search for Grace and so on. We're going to discover the next great talent. And it felt like, almost at the 11th hour, like right when we were about to launch this nationwide search, Chris from selling real estate in Virginia fame, he became one of our producers. Chris emails me and he said, Brad, have you ever heard of AJ Mishaka? And I don't know why. Maybe it's kind of a unique name. And I didn't realize she and her sister are singers, Allie and AJ. They were Disney stars.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And I had just seen the movie Secretariat. And AJ is like the middle daughter in Secretariat. I remember, this is just weird, when he mentioned AJ and he said Secretariat, I go, oh, I remember her. And it was like, not like, oh yeah, I remember her. It was like, no, I remember her. Like I remember thinking, in that, watching Secretariat, if you watch the movie, it's like, it's so weird. They seem to focus on the second daughter, not the oldest daughter. And I remember thinking, this girl just stands out to me. She's really interesting to me. And so, in God's amazing providence, within days, we're meeting with AJ. And then, we hear her sing. We hear her play guitar. We see her act. We're like going, oh my goodness. And the joke with her, a guy, James Denton, who plays the dad in the movie, a very successful actor, they both sang their own parts for the movie. And when we were recording, doing the pre-records, James's famous line at the time was like, James is a better guitar player than he is singer, but he's like singing and he's okay. And so our engineer's like, it's okay, we'll add the sauce later. Well, you're fine. We'll add the sauce later. That was his quote. And then, okay, AJ, you're up. And AJ gets up there. And she just starts wailing. It starts belting out these songs. And we're all just like, our eyes pop out of our heads going, shouldn't she like warm up or something? Shouldn't she like, this girl's incredible, like an incredible singer. And we're all just like, we just hear her do a take of it, and we're all just like staring with our jaws open. And James says, "How come hers comes with the sauce?" So anyway, many stories like any film, but yeah, they were just a great time. AJ is such a talent. She was on the show Goldbergs, and just got her spinoff where she's the lead in the show called Schooled. So on ABC, so she's no doubt she's a star, and it's great to see her career just continue to rise. And she and her sister still sing. Grace was a great time, and we were thrilled when Lionsgate was just such nothing but great stories about Lionsgate and everyone involved with that piece, and we're all still friends, so it's all been fun.
My conversation with Brad Silverman will continue in our next episode. Thank you for joining us on the Ministry of Motion Pictures podcast. You'll find show notes and more information about the Ministry of Motion Pictures at ministryofmotionpictures.org.
What we do in life echoes in eternity.